Some journeys don't lead you to a place. They lead you straight into the darkness of your own soul. In 1972, a 16-year-old girl and her father set out across Europe, following the trail of an ancient dragon-marked book. Every page they turn is a curse. Every place they reach is one step closer to history's most feared legend, Dracula. But as past and present collide, as blood and destiny merge, she realizes the one she has been hunting is not only out there, but living inside her. And the only question left is this the journey to destroy him or to become him? Episode 1. The Mysterious Book. Amsterdam, 1972. I am Anna, 16 years old, living in an old house by a languid canal where fog rolls in every night. The cobblestone streets and old brick houses always seem to whisper, as if they know something. I do not. This story begins in darkness, with a book and a secret I should never have touched. I had always loved my father's library, where the tall, dusty shelves smelled of old paper and decaying wood. But that night, the air felt heavy, as though someone was breathing down my neck. The oil lamp flickered, and my shadow on the wall stretched, distorted, like some creature that wasn't me. That I ran my fingers along the books, brushing past worn leather spines until I touched one with no title. Its black leather cover bore the carving of a dragon, its eyes glinting like gemstones in the light. A chill ran down my spine, but curiosity outweighed fear. That I opened the book. The pages inside were blank, but tucked between them was a yellowed letter, its edges stained as if with dried blood. My heart pounded as I read. Paul, if you are reading this, stop. He has found me. He always finds us. The wooden floor creaked behind me. I turned, but there was only darkness. A cold wind blew through, though the windows were shut tight. Somewhere nearby, water dripped steadily, like the heartbeat of something not from this world. I stuffed the letter into my pocket, but when I looked again, the book had opened to a new page. A hand-drawn image appeared, a crumbling castle deep in the mountains, with a Latin inscription beneath it. Dracula. That I didn't know it yet, but in that moment, I had invited something in. I carried my questions to dinner, where my father sat across from me, his gaunt face dimly lit by the chandelier. Father, Paul, always carried a nameless sorrow, as if the past weighed heavily on him. The clinking of cutlery was the only sound in the silent room, but I could no longer keep quiet. Father, I said, my voice trembling slightly. That book in the library, where did it come from? He froze, the wine glass in his hand halted midair. You shouldn't be rummaging through my things, he said, his voice low and cold. There are things better left unknown. But I read the letter. I pressed, my eyes locked on him. Someone wrote to you. They spoke about him. Who is he? Father's body tensed, his grip on the glass whitening his knuckles. A sudden draft stirred the curtains, though no window was open. His eyes flicked past me, as if he saw a ghost standing there. The nameless dread rose in my chest. My father wasn't just hiding something from me. He was afraid, and that fear wasn't for me, but for something drawing closer. That night, when he thought I was asleep, I heard him murmuring in his study. His voice trembled, as though speaking to a ghost. I didn't know all of his past, but I knew it was tied to the book. Years ago, when he was a student at Oxford, he had touched that same secret. That I imagined him, younger, sitting in the office of Professor Rossi. a man with white hair and eyes as sharp as knives. Rossi handed him a book identical to the one I'd found, with the carved dragon on its cover. "Do you know of Vlad Tepes, Paul?" Rossi asked, not the hero in Romanian history, but the thing behind the legend. Some believe he never died. Father had scoffed, as I might have, thinking it just folklore. But Rossi hadn't smiled. "You'll think differently when he comes for you," he said, his deep voice like a curse. "And he always comes for those who know too much." I pictured the lamplight flickering as Father touched the book. A long, shapeless shadow slipped past the window, moving too fast to truly see. He never told me, but I knew. That night, he had seen something, and it had changed him forever. I couldn't sleep. The book called to me, like an unending whisper in my mind. I crept into the library at midnight, the oil lamp casting a faint glow on my reflection in the mirror, pale, ghost-like. I opened the book, flipping past its blank pages. Suddenly, a hand-drawn map appeared, pointing to Istanbul. The lamp went out. Darkness swallowed everything. A whisper rose from the corner of the room, indistinct, like dozens of voices blending into one, cold and distant. My heart pounded. I clutched the book as if it were the only thing keeping me from falling into the dark. "Who's there?" I croaked. My throat dried out. A figure stood at the end of the book-lined hall. Tall, cloaked in black, face hidden in shadow. Two glowing red eyes burned in the dark, like embers. It moved toward me, each slow step making the wooden floor groan. Like breaking bones, I stumbled backward, falling, the book slipping from my hands. Those eyes looked straight through me, as if to claim my soul. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then Father appeared in the doorway, switching on the light. The figure vanished, as if it had never been there. Gasping, I pointed to the corner. "Father!" There was someone. He was right there. Father followed my gaze, but saw only shadows. He knelt, picked up the book, his face pale as if he had seen the devil. "Dear God," he whispered, "it's begun." In the living room, the firelight flickered over Father's lined face. The book lay between us, like a living thing, breathing. "Anna," he said, his voice heavy with confession, "you've touched something you should never have touched. This book, it's not just a book. It's a curse." I met his gaze, my heart still pounding. "What do you know about it? And about him? You can't keep this from me forever." He sighed, eyes distant, as though looking into an old nightmare. "When I was young, I went looking for him. So did my mentor, Professor Rossi. But all we found was darkness. Now he knows about you." A chill swept down my spine. But I couldn't run. "If he's hunting us, I want to know why," I said firmly. "I won't hide." Father was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded. "Then we go?" "Istanbul, where it all began." I looked out the window, where thick fog shrouded the house. Far away, in the darkness, I could feel a pair of glowing red eyes watching. He was out there, waiting, and I knew this journey would take me to the very edge of fear itself. Episode 2: The Disappearance of the Mentor. When we arrived in Istanbul, the city greeted me with a thick fog, as if it wanted to hide something. The cobblestone alleys glimmered with oil lamplight, and the call to prayer from the minarets echoed, half invitation, half warning. My father, Paul, gripped my hand tightly, his eyes fixed on the darkness, as if he saw something I could not. We came to a small hotel, its stained walls and creaking wooden stairs making me shiver. In the room, I pulled the letter from the book, the words still making my heart race. He always finds us. My father unfolded the hand-drawn map I had found, pointing to a marked spot, an ancient library in the heart of Istanbul. "This is where we must go," he said, his voice low, like a prayer. But when he looked at me, I saw the fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for me. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the sound of dripping water from the ceiling. But when I looked up, the ceiling was dry. The dripping sound was not from water. It was like blood, steady and slow, from a place I didn't dare imagine. The old library was hidden behind a noisy market, where the scent of spices and the shouting of merchants couldn't cover the gloom in the air. The gray stone building, with its arched windows covered in cobwebs, looked more like a tomb then, a place of knowledge. When we stepped inside, the cold air clung to my skin, even though it was summer outside. An old librarian, his face wrinkled like parchment, led us through the dark book-lined halls. His eyes were cold, as though he knew exactly why we had come. "What are you looking for?" he asked, his raspy voice like dry leaves rustling. My father replied something about ancient manuscripts, but I didn't catch it. All I felt was his gaze, like a blade sliding across my throat. Then he led us to a small room, where a wooden table was carved with a dragon symbol, exactly like the one on my book. I opened my book to compare. The symbol on the table had red eyes, as if they were alive. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through, though there were no windows. Books on the shelves trembled, as if they might fall. The librarian looked at me and smiled, but there was no warmth in that smile. In that room, my father began telling me about Professor Rossi, his mentor at Oxford. His voice shook, as if each word cost him something. "Rossi was the first to tell me about Dracula," he said. "Not the character in stories, but something that truly exists." I pictured Rossi, a white-haired man with sharp eyes, sitting in a book-filled office at Oxford in 1950. He handed my father a book identical to mine, with the dragon carved on its cover. "Vlad Tepes did not die, Paul," Rossi said. "He is still out there, and he knows when someone is hunting him." My father had laughed, as I might have, thinking it only a legend. But Rossi didn't smile. He spoke of other scholars, those who sought Dracula and vanished without a trace. "They found books like this one," Rossi said, pointing to the dragon, "and then they never returned." The night before Rossi disappeared, my father saw him in the library, murmuring to a shadowy figure. When my father stepped in, the figure vanished, and Rossi only said one thing: "Don't follow me, Paul. He has chosen me." I looked at my father, my heart seeming to stop. "Rossi is dead, isn't he?" I asked. My father didn't answer, but his eyes told me everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. The dripping sound returned, this time from the hotel hallway. I slipped outside, carrying the book, as if it were a charm or a curse. Istanbul's alleys were steeped in darkness, the faint moonlight glinting on the stained walls. I walked by instinct, as though the book was leading me. Then I saw him, a tall figure, a black cloak billowing like bat wings, standing at the end of the alley. His eyes glowed red, like two embers in the night. He didn't move, but I felt the air around me grow heavier, as if I were being pulled into a void that I wanted to run, but my legs felt nailed to the ground. He stepped forward, slowly, each footfall ringing like a funeral bell. I heard a whisper, not from him, but inside my head. "Anna, you have opened the book." I screamed, stumbling back into a wooden crate. When I looked up, he was gone, but on the ground where he had stood was a dark red stain, like fresh blood, spreading into the shape of a dragon. The next morning, my father took me to meet a local scholar, Mr. Ahmed, who knew about ancient manuscripts. He lived in a small house crammed with books and maps. But when I told him about the figure in the alley, Mr. Ahmed's face went pale, his eyes darting to the book in my hand. "You shouldn't have brought that here," he said, his voice trembling. "That book belongs to a secret order. They guard his legacy, Dracula. They are everywhere, and they know you've arrived." My father gripped my hand tightly, but I could feel him shaking. "That order, what did they do to Rossi?" asked. Ahmet looked toward the window, as if afraid someone might be listening. "They didn't kill Rossi," he whispered. "They gave him to him, and now he knows about the girl." A cold wave washed over me. Ahmet's gaze fell to my hand, where I clutched the book. In the dim light, I saw a faint mark on my skin, a dragon, as if burning beneath the surface we left the house. But the darkness of Istanbul seemed to follow us. I knew he was out there, waiting, and I, though terrified, had stepped too far into his labyrinth to turn back. Episode 3: The Dragon Map. We left Istanbul in an old, rattling car, rolling over gravel-strewn roads. My father, Paul, gripped the dragon map tightly, his eyes tense as though fighting off a memory that refused to let go. The map pointed to an ancient monastery deep in the mountains, said to guard the secret of Vlad Tepes' tomb. That I gazed out the window at the pitch-black pine trees standing still, like sentinels of a dead kingdom. The air was biting cold, though the sun still hung high above. I clutched the dragon book in my hands, feeling it heavier than usual, as if alive. Suddenly, the car stopped. The driver, an old local man with a weathered face, pointed to a trail leading into the forest. "The monastery is there," he rasped, "but I won't go any farther. No one enters at night." I looked to my father, but he only nodded, his eyes darkening. As we stepped out, I heard the distant howl of a wolf, cold, far away, yet carrying the weight of a warning. I wondered if it was truly a wolf at all. The monastery emerged from the darkness, a heap of ruined stone overgrown with vines, like a corpse abandoned in the forest. The shattered windows looked like empty eyes, and the damp, moldy smell rising from the ground mixed with something, faintly like dried blood. A chill crawled up my neck. Though I had my coat wrapped tightly around me, my father led me inside, the beam of his flashlight trembling against walls carved with dragon symbols. "This is it," he whispered, as though trying to reassure himself. "The map brought us here." I opened the book, comparing the map to what lay before us. A faded mural appeared, a man in armor, holding a spear, standing before a massive dragon. Beneath it were Latin words: "Ego sum Dracul, et ego sum eternus." I translated in my mind, "I am Dracula, and I am eternal." Suddenly, a low growl rumbled from deep within the monastery. My father's flashlight went out, and darkness swallowed us whole. I heard claws scraping against stone, slow, deliberate, drawing closer. "Father," I cried, but my voice felt strangled by the dark. In the darkness, I felt the book in my hands grow warm, as though whispering to me. I closed my eyes, and an image appeared, not like a dream, but like a memory that wasn't mine that I saw Vlad Tepes, a tall man with black hair and eyes as sharp as blades, standing in a stone castle in the 15th century. Before him stood a being, not man, not beast, but a shadow given form with blood-red eyes. "You want the power to protect your kingdom?" the being asked, its voice like wind through a graveyard. Vlad nodded, blood dripping from his hand into a stone bowl carved with a dragon. "I accept the pact," he said. The being laughed, and darkness enveloped Vlad, consuming him. When the light returned, Vlad's eyes glowed red, and his smile was no longer human. I opened my eyes, heart racing. My father gripped my shoulders, pulling me back to reality. "Anna, what did you see?" he asked, his voice shaking. I couldn't speak, but I knew. I had witnessed the moment Vlad became Dracula. The scraping claws came closer. My father pulled me through the monastery's corridors, but the darkness seemed alive, crawling after us. We stopped in a stone chamber where an ancient coffin lay in the center, covered in dust and cobwebs. I opened the book, and my father's flashlight lit a newly appeared page, a drawing of this very coffin, with the words, "He does not sleep in the earth." I felt a cold breath at the back of my neck. Then it appeared, a wolf-like creature, but larger, with jet black fur and burning red eyes. It didn't growl or attack, only stared at me, as if it knew exactly who I was. My father shouted, swinging the flashlight, but the creature didn't move. "Anna, run," he yelled. But before I could, the creature lunged, its claws slicing the air. I fell, the book slipping from my hands. When I looked up, the creature was gone, but on the floor, where it had stood, was a pool of bright red blood, spreading into the shape of a dragon. We fled the monastery, my heart pounding in my chest. But when we reached the car, the driver was gone. In his place stood a stranger, cloaked in black, his face hidden in shadow. "You should not have come here," he said, his voice as cold as stone. "The order knows you have the book." My father gripped my hand, but I saw him tremble. "Who are you?" he asked. The stranger smiled, revealing sharp teeth. "We are his servants," he whispered, "and the girl has been chosen." The dragon mark on my hand burned, as if alive. My father pulled me into the forest, but the wolf's howl rose again, closer than ever. When we stopped to catch our breath, I looked down at the book still in my grasp. A new page had opened, not by my hand, a map leading to Romania, where Vlad's tomb was said to lie. I knew that no matter how afraid I was, we could not stop. He was hunting us, and the book was the chain pulling me closer to him. But I wondered, was I hunting him, or was he leading me into his trap? Episode 4: The Darkness of Wallachia. We arrived in Romania on an old train, the grinding of its wheels on the rails sounding like the groans of a trapped soul. My father, Paul, clutched the dragon map, his eyes full of dread, as if he knew we were walking into the wolf's mouth. The map led us to Snagov Monastery, believed to be the burial site of Vlad Tepes. When the train stopped at a small village, the cold air clung to my skin, though it was midday. The locals eyed us warily, as if we carried a curse. An old woman, her face wrinkled like tree bark, took my hand and whispered, "Do not go to Snagov. He is still there." I wanted to ask more, but my father pulled me away, his eyes darkening. As we left the village, I glanced back. The old woman still stood there, making the sign of the cross, but her gaze wasn't for my safety. It was fear of something behind me. I looked down at my hand. The dragon mark on my skin was faint now, but still burning, reminding me that I had been marked. Snagov Monastery rose beside the lake, a heap of cold gray stone gnawed by time. Moss-covered walls crumbled, and the wind whistled through broken windows like the quiet laughter of a predator. I felt the dragon book in my pocket grow heavy, as if trying to drag me down. My father led me inside, the beam of his flashlight trembling over faded murals. One painting depicted Vlad Tepes, his red eyes fixed on me as if he knew I was here. Beneath the floor lay a large stone slab, said to be the lid of Vlad's tomb. My father knelt, ran his hand over it, and pushed it aside, revealing only an empty pit. "The tomb is empty," he whispered, his voice shaking. He was never here. I opened the book, and a new page appeared, not turned by me. A single line of handwriting, the ink red as blood. "He lives in your shadow." Suddenly, a hiss rose from the pit, like the breath of something not human. I stumbled back, my heart pounding, as the darkness within seemed to move, reaching upward to swallow me. That night, we stayed at a small inn near the monastery. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Not Vlad Tepes, but Dracula, a towering figure, black cloak swirling like bat wings, eyes glowing red as blood. In my dream, he stood before me in a cold stone chamber, holding the dragon book. "You have opened the door," he said, his voice deep and cold, like stone grinding against stone. "You belong to me." I tried to scream, but my throat closed. He stepped closer, and I saw his face, not human, but something twisted, smiling with sharp, gleaming teeth. He reached out and touched me, and the dragon mark on my hand ignited, burning as if my flesh were melting. That I woke drenched in sweat, but the whisper from the dream still echoed in my head. I looked at my hand. The dragon mark was now sharper, carved deeper into my skin. My father sat by the window, staring into the darkness outside, as if he too could hear that whisper. The next morning, a man named Mihai came to meet us. He claimed to be a local guide who knew the history of Snagov and Vlad Tepes. Mihai was tall, with black hair and eyes sharp as blades, but his smile sent a chill down my spine. "I will take you to where the map points," he said, glancing at the dragon book in my hand. That we followed Mihai into the forest, where a narrow trail led to an abandoned chapel. The air was heavy, as if the forest itself were breathing. Mihai spoke of Vlad Tepes, of brutal battles and ghostly legends. "They say he did not die," he whispered, his eyes flicking toward me. "He chooses those who carry his book." Suddenly, Mihai stopped before the chapel. His smile vanished. "You have come too far," he said, and I saw his eyes glow. Red, just like the creature in the monastery before. Before I could react, Mihai drew a knife, its blade glinting in the moonlight. My father shoved me behind him, but Mihai moved with inhuman speed, lunging like a beast. That I screamed and ran into the chapel, but when I turned back, Mihai was gone. On the floor where he had stood was a dark red pool of blood, spreading into the shape of a dragon. Inside the chapel, my hands shook as I opened the dragon book. A new page revealed itself, a map leading to a castle in Bulgaria, said to be Dracula's true stronghold. Beneath it, in red ink, "You cannot hide. I have chosen you." My father knelt beside me, his face pale. "Anna," he said, his voice breaking. "This book isn't just leading us. It's leading him to you." I looked at my father, but inside me, fear mingled with a strange pull, as if I wanted to know more, to face him. The dragon mark on my hand burned, calling to me. I knew, no matter the terror, I could not turn back. As we left the chapel, the forest fell silent, as though the world itself was holding its breath. But I could feel him, not in the forest, but within me. His whisper echoed in my mind. "Anna, come to me." And I knew this journey was no longer just a search. It was an invitation, and I was stepping into his darkness. Episode 5: The Library of the Immortal. Budapest greeted us with a cold rain, each drop falling like the whispers of forgotten souls. My father, Paul, clutched the dragon map, his eyes filled with worry, as if he knew we were walking into a trap. The map led to a secret library, buried deep in the old quarter, said to hold manuscripts about Dracula. That we stayed at Asmelin, where the smell of rotting wood and damp seeped into the walls. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard a whisper, not from outside, but inside my head. "Anna, you are mine." The dragon mark on my hand burned, reminding me I was no longer truly myself. That night, I looked out the window and saw a figure standing under the streetlight, his black cloak swirling like bat wings. He didn't move, but his glowing red eyes locked onto mine through the rain. I shut the curtain, my heart pounding, but when I looked again, he was gone, leaving only a dark red puddle on the street, spreading into the shape of a dragon. The library was tucked behind a shadowed alley, its entrance an iron gate carved with dragon symbols. Inside, the air was heavy, as if time had stopped for centuries. Towering, dust-covered shelves stood like bone pillars in a graveyard. A woman stood behind the counter, her hair pure white, her face lined with age but her eyes sharp as knives. "What do you seek?" she asked, her voice rasping like dry leaves scraping over stone. That my father said something about ancient manuscripts, but I barely heard. All I felt was her gaze, sliding into my chest like a blade. She led us through dark corridors, where the flicker of oil lamps cast warped shadows on the walls. I opened the dragon book, and a new page appeared, a sketch of this library, with the words, "Where the immortal is worshipped." Suddenly, a hiss rose from deep inside the library, like the breath of something not human. The books on the shelves trembled, ready to fall. The woman looked at me and smiled, but it was a cold, lifeless smile, like that of a corpse. In the cold stone room of the library, my father told me about Professor Rossi, his mentor, who had vanished after hunting Dracula. His voice shook, each word like a cut. "Rossi came here in the 1930s, he said. He found a network, people, who worshipped Dracula as a god. I pictured Rossi, a white-haired man, standing in this very library, holding the dragon book. He found an ancient manuscript, written in red ink, describing a ritual to summon Dracula or destroy him. They were not just scholars, Rossi wrote in his journal. They were servants, and they delivered me to him. In the vision, I saw Rossi surrounded by black-cloaked figures, their red eyes glinting in the dark. A voice echoed, not from them, but inside his head. "You have learned too much." When Rossi screamed, the darkness swallowed him, and the dragon book fell to the floor, opening to the page with the dragon emblem. I opened my eyes, my heart pounding. Rossi died here, didn't he? I asked my father. He didn't answer, but his eyes told me everything. The woman led us to a hidden room, where an ancient manuscript lay on a stone table, carved with dragon symbols. "This is what you seek," she said, but her voice made my skin crawl. I opened the manuscript and saw lines written in red ink, describing a ritual to confront Dracula, but at the cost of the performer's soul. Suddenly, the door slammed shut. The light died, and darkness consumed everything. A chorus of whispers rose, not a single voice, but dozens, weaving together like wind. Through a graveyard. "Father," I cried, but my voice was swallowed whole. Then I saw her, not the old woman, but something warped. Her face cracked like parched earth, her eyes burning red. "You have been chosen," she growled, her voice no longer human. The books toppled from the shelves, as if shoved by invisible hands. I grabbed the manuscript and pulled my father toward the exit, but the hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, and the darkness crawled after us. When we finally burst out, I looked back. She stood in the doorway, smiling, and in her hand was the dragon book. Not mine, but another identical. The dragon mark on my hand flared, as if tearing my flesh apart. We ran from the library, my heart hammering in my chest. In a dingy inn, I opened the manuscript and found a new map. A castle in Bulgaria, said to be Dracula's final stronghold. Beneath it, in red ink, "He waits for you there." My father knelt beside me, his face pale. "Anna," he said, his voice breaking, "this book isn't just a curse. It's a door, and you've opened it." I looked at the dragon mark on my hand, now clearer, as if carved by fire. The whisper came again in my mind, cold and sharp. "Anna, you will come to me." I knew that no matter how afraid I was, I could not turn back. He wasn't just hunting me, he had chosen me. And this manuscript, with its deadly ritual, was my only chance to face him. As we left Budapest, the city sank in a thick fog. I could feel him, not outside, but within me. The dragon mark was alive, and it was pulling me closer to him than ever before. Episode 6, The Blood Pact. We arrived in Bulgaria on a gray afternoon, the sun hidden behind heavy clouds. The castle appeared through the mist, a heap of shattered stone, its tall towers jutting into the sky like broken teeth. The air was icy, carrying the scent of damp earth and something like dried blood. My father, Paul, gripped the manuscript from Budapest, his eyes filled with dread, as if he knew we were stepping into a grave. The trail to the castle was carpeted with rotting leaves, and each step I took echoed like bones grinding together. The dragon book in my hands felt unbearably heavy, as if pulling me toward the ground. I glanced at the dragon mark on my hand, now glowing crimson, as if alive. That a howl rose from the forest, not a wolf, but something larger, more vicious. My father squeezed my hand, but I could feel him, Dracula, not outside, but inside me, whispering, "You have come, Anna. You are mine." I wanted to scream, but my throat locked. The castle before us was not merely a building. It was an invitation, and I was walking in. We entered the castle through a rusted iron gate. It screeched like the cry of a trapped soul. Inside, the air was heavy, as though time had died long ago. The stone walls were carved with dragon emblems, and the beam of my father's flashlight quivered as if afraid of the darkness itself. The manuscript from Budapest led us to a chamber deep inside, where a massive stone altar stood in the center, carved with a giant dragon whose red eyes gleamed like blood. Atop the altar rested an ancient stone bowl, its surface stained dark, as if it had once held blood. I opened the manuscript and read, "The ritual to banish the immortal requires the blood of the chosen." Suddenly, a low growl rumbled from beneath the floor, like the breathing of a waking beast. My father's flashlight went out, and darkness swallowed us whole. I heard claws scraping against stone, slow and deliberate, drawing nearer. "Father," I cried, but my voice was swallowed by the dark. Then I felt it, a cold breath at my neck, and his whisper, "You will give your blood." In the darkness, the dragon book grew hot in my hands, pulling me into a memory that was not mine. I closed my eyes and saw Vlad Tepes in this very chamber centuries ago. He stood before the altar, blood dripping from his hand into the stone bowl. Before him was a being, a shadow with form, eyes blazing red, its smile twisted. "You seek immortality?" the being asked, its voice like wind over a graveyard. Vlad nodded, and his blood ignited in the bowl, sending out black smoke. The being laughed, and the darkness enveloped Vlad, transforming him. When the light returned, Vlad's eyes glowed crimson, and his smile was no longer human. He had become Dracula. I opened my eyes, my heart pounding. My father gripped my shoulders, his face pale. "Anna, what did you see?" he asked, his voice shaking. I could not speak, but I knew. I had seen the blood pact, and the dragon mark on my hand was proof of my link to him. The scraping claws stopped, but the darkness still breathed around us. I opened the dragon book, and a new page appeared, a drawing of the altar with the words, "The blood of the chosen will open the door." I looked down at the dragon mark on my hand. It now glowed like fire, calling to me. "Anna, no," my father shouted, but I had already touched the altar. A wave of cold surged through me, and I saw him, Dracula, not in a dream, but standing before me. Tall, his black cloak flowing like bat wings, his red eyes pierced straight into my soul. "You are my descendant," he said, his voice deep as shattering stone. "Your blood belongs to me." I stepped back, but my feet felt nailed to the floor. My father lunged to pull me away, but the darkness around us moved like unseen hands. He did not attack, only stared, smiling with jagged, inhuman teeth. "You will come to me," he whispered, then vanished, leaving a dark red pool on the altar, spreading into the shape of a dragon. We fled the castle, but his whisper still echoed in my mind. In a nearby cave, I opened the manuscript and saw a new line. "The ritual requires the blood of the chosen, or the soul of the chosen will be lost forever." I looked at my father, and for the first time, I saw him cry. "Anna," he said, his voice breaking, "the book has chosen you. He has chosen you, but I can't let you do this." I looked at the dragon mark. It was now like a living wound, bleeding. I knew, no matter how afraid I was, I could not run. He was not just hunting me. He was part of me. The manuscript spoke of another castle in Transylvania, where the final ritual must be performed at as we left Bulgaria. Thick fog wrapped around us, as if trying to swallow us whole. I felt him, not only in the darkness, but in my blood. His whisper came, clearer than ever. "Anna, your blood will seal the pact. And I knew this journey was not only to destroy him, it was to face myself. Episode 7: The Historian's Choice. We arrived in Transylvania under a starless, pitch-black sky. Dracula's castle emerged through the fog, its broken stone towers like the fangs of a demon. The air was heavy, carrying the scent of blood and rotting earth, as if the land itself was breathing. My father, Paul, gripped the manuscript from Budapest, his eyes no longer those of a father, but of a vampire hunter haunted by the past. The path to the castle was shrouded in mist, and each of my steps echoed like a death knell. The dragon book in my hands burned hot, as if melting into my flesh. The dragon mark on my hand now glowed crimson, seeping blood, a reminder that I had been chosen by him. The castle gate opened before us without a touch, as if it had been waiting. From the darkness, a faint laugh rose, not from my father, not from me, but from him. "Anna, you have come home." The voice rang in my head, cold as stone. I tightened my grip on the book, my heart pounding, but I knew I could not turn back. We entered the castle, my father's flashlight trembling over walls etched with dragon symbols. The air was freezing, as if the darkness itself was choking me. The manuscript led us down a spiral stone staircase into a deep underground crypt. The walls were stained with dark red patches, like centuries-old dried blood. In the center of the crypt stood a massive stone coffin, carved with a giant dragon whose eyes glowed red, alive. The manuscript was clear. The ritual to banish Dracula required the blood of the chosen me. But the price was my soul or someone else's. My father looked at me, his eyes shattering. "Anna, I will do this," he said, his voice trembling. "I can't let you." Before he could finish, a roar erupted from the coffin. The stone shook, and the darkness around us began to move, like invisible hands. I opened the dragon book, and a new page appeared. "Your blood will complete the curse or destroy it." The dragon mark on my hand flared, as if tearing my skin apart. In the crypt's darkness, the book pulled me into a memory that wasn't mine. I saw Professor Rossi, my father's mentor, in this very crypt years ago. He stood before the stone coffin, holding a manuscript like mine, terror in his eyes. "You think you can destroy me?" A voice spoke, not from the air, but from inside Rossi's mind. Dracula appeared, not a man, but a shadow with form, eyes burning red, and a twisted smile. Rossi tried to perform the ritual, but his blood was not enough. He was not the chosen. The darkness devoured Rossi, and I heard his scream echo, trapped in time. When the vision faded, I opened my eyes to find my father staring at me, his face pale. "Rossi failed," he whispered, "because he did not carry his blood." I looked down at the dragon mark, and a terrible truth surged within me. I was a descendant of Dracula. My blood was the key, and he had known it all along. Suddenly, the stone coffin cracked open, and he appeared, Dracula. Tall, his black cloak billowing like bat wings, his eyes burning red as living blood. He did not move, yet the air around him grew heavy, draining the life from me. "Anna," he said, his voice deep as breaking stone, "you have brought my blood here. The ritual will complete the curse." My father lunged forward, silver knife in hand, but Dracula merely flicked his wrist, and my father collapsed, unconscious. I stood alone before him, the dragon book burning in my hands. "You cannot win," he whispered, stepping closer. "Your blood is mine." I opened the manuscript and recited the ritual words, my voice trembling. Blood from the dragon mark dripped onto the coffin, and a surge of red light erupted, engulfing the chamber. Dracula roared, his form twisting between man and beast. A creature with razor claws and fangs like knives that I felt my soul being pulled away, but I didn't stop. I poured my blood into the stone bowl, completing the ritual. The red light blazed brighter, and Dracula collapsed, his body disintegrating into ash. But before vanishing, he looked at me, smiling grotesquely. "You will carry my curse forever." When the light faded, I knelt beside my father as he awoke, pain filling his eyes. "Anna, what have you done?" he whispered. I didn't answer because I felt it, a hollow place inside me, as if part of my soul was gone. The dragon book lay on the floor, now empty, its pages blank. The dragon mark on my hand remained, faint but still bleeding, a constant reminder. We left the castle, the thick fog curling around us, but I felt no victory. Back in Amsterdam, I stood before the mirror in my room. The dragon mark glimmered in the light, and for a brief moment, I saw my own eyes, glowing red like his. The whisper returned, faint but unending. "You are mine." Had I destroyed Dracula, or merely taken his curse into myself? I didn't know. But as I looked out the window, watching fog creep over the canal, I knew his darkness still lived, and it lived in me. The darkness of Dracula has vanished from the castle, but not from this world. Anna returns, carrying a victory everyone believes to be complete. Yet in her eyes, a faint red gleam still lingers, and the dragon mark on her hand has never faded. Has the curse truly ended, or has it only just begun in a new form? Thank you for following this journey to the end. Subscribe now so you won't miss more terrifying and mysterious tales, where the line between truth and legend is thinner than ever.